Time for Third Society to get serious.
Time to get serious. You want
PBS special.
PBS special.
For my old school heads who know what that means.
Would you like me to maybe play one track?
Yeah, play one track
so
we
we
get
can
them
get the
set
guys
up.
in here and set up. All right.
Yeah. You're sitting on the panel with me, right?
Yes, yes.
Right.
I'll help start off. You facilitate all that good stuff.
Yes.
Got you.
Tis McGee.
I don't think I've heard Tis McGee for like 3 weeks.
On the 1, 2, 3s.
I meant to bring like ones in too, but I spent them.
Listen, y'all. Tell a friend, log on right now, man. We got a crazy show. We talking gun control. Grown folks business. Keep it locked. Third Society Radio. MusicFiend.com. Tell them I know. You ready, lady?
Climb on in, let's ride. Gonna show you what it really look like. High up in the sky. Like overpasses. Pulling in the intersection. Give a whole new meaning to the words moon, root. Outer space, baby. I don't think you would ever get this high in a vehicle, ever.
I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel. I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel. Chrome on the feet, chrome pipes, chrome grill. Swing, cock the wheel, hold my drink, don't spill. Damn, I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel. I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel. Chrome on the, I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel. I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel. Chrome on the feet, chrome pipes, chrome grill. Swing, cock the wheel, hold my drink, don't spill. Damn.
I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel. 2 fingers bending corners, the block stand still. Cops on my heels, but I'm beating down still. Chrome on my lap for these jackets out to kill. Feet I should kill. It's magic how the paint pop the grill. Pop the clutch and squeal. Blades chop like Kill Bill.
I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel. I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel. Chrome on the feet, chrome pipes, chrome grill. Swing, cock the wheel, hold my drink, don't spill. Damn.
Grab my shells and roll up. Triple stack my cups up. Jolly Ranchers and Xanax, my special potion cola. My seats feel like sofas. Cup in my hand, no coasters. This drink don't spill, I'm focused. I sip, I bend, I smoke up. All in one motion. Doing 60, I'm floating. Elbow out the window, I'm gloating. Riding in slow motion. My new car look like my old one. I know.
I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel. I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel. Chrome on the feet, chrome pipes, chrome grill. Swing, cock the wheel, hold my drink, don't spill. Damn, I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel. I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel. I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel.
Boy, I see you swinging.
Chrome on the feet, chrome pipes, chrome grill.
Boy, I see you swinging.
Cherry red paint make the frame glow. Them gold flakes make it rainbow. When the sun hit it, it shine from every angle. Furry red dice dangle from the rear view. A pimp's cathedral. Diamond in the back, the hard top is my halo. Let my sweet angel ride shotgun and chill. My music jam, I'm banging screw. Shout out to my Houston crew. Uncle Bun and Scarface, the reason why my car laced with a tattoo Alpine face. 15s and loud bass, had to listen to Screw, right? First time I poured lean, I had to use up 2 Sprites. I swear I drove like all night under that Houston Star lazy. Rest in peace to the pimp and Big Mo, the ball, baby. The ball, baby. The ball, baby. The ball, baby.
I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel. I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel. Chrome on the feet, chrome pipes, chrome grill. Swing, cock the wheel, hold my drink, don't spill. Damn, I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel. I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel. I'ma show you how to twerk the wheel.
Mercedes foes gleaming under my ride. A summertime vibe. It's 1995. Back when DJ Screw had the city slowed down. 3 in the morning, drink was pouring out. Back to take you back to where you couldn't ride slab. Cause the elbow killer come a tipping up the air and catch a nigga slipping. Then beat you for your shit and put the bullet in your head. Leaving your people sick. That's why I be tripping when I see them riding Vogues. I whisper to myself, what these niggas don't know. Flaked out boat paint. They Hollywood hopping with French antennas. The pop, those popping. Them 18 speakers, so it's no backseat. Got them big head rigs and one fat brick. That old sucker nigga dick off the south side thing. You can zig and zag later, you ain't south side, man.
Testing. Third Society Radio.
Check.
We are live.
I love that track right there.
I too. It was nice and smooth too.
Yeah,
nice and smooth.
You know, it started off smooth.
Tell a friend. Log on right now. MusicFiend.com. We have our special guests in the building. We're talking gun control. Y'all want to introduce yourselves, fellas, and go first and introduce yourself and let them know you're against or for the bill. Go ahead. You go first.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Tru, local hip-hop artist out of Rhode Island, and I am opposing what's being presented here in the state of Rhode Island.
Okay.
Bill's here.
Sir, it's on you now.
I'm Rep. Joe Almeida, and I'm pro. I am the chief and only sponsor of these 3 bills.
Man, we have to repeat that. Your mic sounds a little low.
Yeah, I think their mic's on.
You turn them up. Go ahead, try it again.
I'm Rep. Joe Almeida. I am pro gun control, and I'm the only.
No, we're not getting any. We're not getting any. I don't know what the issue is. Yeah, LadyRuck might have to switch one. You got it? Okay, say it again. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm pro. I'm Rep. Joe Almeida, and I'm pro on gun control. And also, I'm the only sponsor on these three bills. Actually, there's 4 bills, but I co-sponsored the 4th bill. But these
okay. Well, why don't you explain to the people who's watching, like, exactly what the bill is about and why you are pro for the bill?
There's 3 bills. 2 are almost identical, except for the 3rd one. And to put them all together, and I'm sure I'll let my opponent go into deeper, but the fact is that I'm looking for a way to control the gun violence out in the streets.
Right.
As a politician, we're supposed to be proactive, not reactive.
Right.
And as the years have gone by, I've presented a bill before. This is the first time ever. Once before, I presented a bill on automatic weapons. So being a retired police officer and a retired Marine, I've seen what guns can do. I own guns myself. So it's not where I'm totally against the guns, but there has to be the way to control it. People will talk about, oh, you know, Joe, the criminals. Well, I spent a good portion of my life locking people up.
Right.
But at the other end, there's one section of the community that no one's talking about, and that's the children. And now kids know a lot about guns. Kids are taking a piece of paper, they will draw on the back of it, and it's been shown on national news of kids, you know, having a problem with another child and shooting with a drawing another child. We have kids in, I believe it's a middle school, that are now starting to bring guns to school. I've had a gentleman come to my house saying, well, Joe, the teachers need to have guns. So I'm like, well, when does it stop? My question today is, and I know these bills are not going to go anywhere, but I got what I wanted.
Right.
And that is attention to gun violence and gun control. And how do we go about it? I don't know the answer.
Right.
In the Marine Corps, we was always taught, if you ask the question, you should come up with the answer. Well, I don't have it. First time around, I put the gun bill out. Nobody paid me no mind. A couple of people came to judiciary, complained, had very good Second Amendment counterpoints, very good Second Amendment counterpoints. But nobody came up with the ability to sit at the table and come with a compromise. Down south, I was always told, if somebody tells you no, you take that word and you turn it around and it's on. So now that's why we're here at Music Fiend today.
Okay.
All right.
Strong case there, starting off.
So I think what we'll do now is we'll have Tru kind of present your side of, your impression of the three bills. If anybody wants any bills in the language and bills, I don't know if anybody wants it to be read directly. If so, let me know in the chat, and Shiesty and I will just read one of the bills. But we're going to go over and kind of get just a very brief, introduction to who you are and, why you're here and why this issue is of importance to you.
Well, I'm here not based on myself, but, this is a free society for the most part, for whatever that we have left anyway.
Right.
But
Sorry.
these bills, and I'm going to try and keep this as brief as possible, but if anyone out there wants to research what the UN Arms Treaty, the Small Arms Treaty, what the UN has issued in 2013, which has not been ratified by the U.S., these bills are trickling down. If anyone notices in the news media that Obama and his cabinet and both Democrats and Republicans were trying to pass legislations for stronger and stricter gun control, and they could not succeed that.
This was prior to Sandy Hook, wasn't it, or after? I think it was prior.
It was, I believe, it was prior or during.
Right.
Because I know that after the Batman massacre, if anyone remembers that,
absolutely.
So all these bills are trickling down from federal government, and they can't succeed that federally, so they put these small, they want to get all the states covered. And for right now, Connecticut, if nobody knows, has already, they've already banned a certain, similar to what these bills are in place of. However, this is a lot more aggressive. I mean, semi-automatic firearms is pretty much 80 to 90% of the firearms owned by most gun owners, most legal gun owners. Legal meaning anyone who's law-abiding. You cannot be a felon. You cannot be anyone who's charged of domestic violence, drug-related crimes, so on.
People might have a clean record.
Right. Anyone with a clean record. So it's interesting to me, Mr. Almeida, that you had mentioned that you're a gun owner yourself, and I'm certain, just by wondering if some of these bills that's being represented here, that you perhaps own one of these firearms, and if in fact, if these
wait, before he answers, why don't you read off what what's you're against, right? So why don't you read off what some of the bulletin points you have there?
Well, their definition of semi-automatic assault weapon means a rifle that has the ability to accept a detachable magazine and has at least two of the following characteristics, that being a folding or telescoping stock. Pretty much all long rifles, shotguns have a stock that hit your shoulder.
Right.
If anyone doesn't know what that is, please research it. A pistol grip that protrudes conspicuously beneath the action of the weapon. A thumb hole stock, bayonet mount, threaded barrel, designed to accommodate a flash suppressor, muzzle brake, or muzzle compensator. I mean, these lists go on and on. I mean, these are pages. Actually, before I'm going to let you talk, but please research H7584 of the General Assembly of Rhode Island and H7585 also of the General Assembly of Rhode Island. There's another bill too that I do not have on me.
Okay.
But
all right. Really quickly, I'm going to consider that both to be their opening statements.
Right.
Can I have a copy of the bill that you have here? And I'm going to actually this one as well. I am going to see if these are actually. I'm going to read from the bill that you brought, just because I think we already have a request for somebody to read for us to read the bill.
Just to guide you a little quicker, and I'm sure the debate, but the last page usually gives this.
His mic is
okay.
Why is it?
Just try to speak into it a little more. On the last page, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
What's going
On
on?
the last. Yeah, you're good. You gotta speak up. On the last page.
There you go.
For both you and the viewers, as well as the gentleman sitting here, it'll give you the breakdown of the bill.
Yeah, because most bills start off with the definitions and all that other stuff. So what I'm going to do is, this talks about, basically, this act, it says this act would impose restrictions on the manufacture, transfer, and possession of certain semi-automatic assault weapons. It would ban large capacity ammunition feed devices. And this act would take effect upon passage, meaning obviously once the bill would be passed. So essentially,
Effective immediately.
it would be effective immediately. Essentially, this act is this bill that I have in my hand right now, which the number of this bill, where is that? Where can I find the actual reference number? But is this the correct number?
And they can go on.
All right, so 2014 H7585 or 2014 H7584. Not exactly sure which one I'm referring to with this right here, but gun control, semi-automatic, I believe it's 7584. So basically what this bill is saying, there's a lot of talk about, what means what, and it's describing exactly which firearms they're referencing here, but it basically would ban, because that's a very small, very direct to the point, basically just banning all semi-automatic weapons. Does that mean people who have these things in possession? Or, because I know it says the manufacturing and stuff of that, so you just banning it altogether?
Banning it altogether, but
That would include if you had a license for it?
but it would have only those who already have licenses, they would be exceeded from that. But Tru is correct. All three of these bills are extremely aggressive. Extremely
LadyRuck,
aggressive.
sorry, I don't. Can you switch mics with them? I don't.
Yeah.
Want to switch mics because I don't know what's going on with that phone mic. We apologize for the issues, but I want to make sure that they hear both parties fair and square.
I'd like to add too.
Check.
Wait, let me repeat that because I'm not sure they heard that last part. You can repeat that.
All these weapons,
Right.
or rather, all these bills are extremely, and I agree, extremely over-aggressive. But that was the only way for me to get the table to the discussion or the conversation to go at the table of discussion.
Right.
So we have it. But at the same time, for instance, when we talk about how many rounds, clips that you need. So when I came on a job as a police officer, I had a 38 hollow points. By the time I left, I had a 9mm and I had 2 clips. So we're talking well over 30 rounds.
Right.
Well, what I'm saying is the cop reflected society what he or she had to confront. I'm saying you need more than 10 rounds in your house. If somebody breaks in your house, you need more than 10 rounds to stop that individual from coming in. Does this help the hunters? No. Is it fair to the hunters? Probably not.
Right.
But I had to start somewhere to get that conversation. And all I know is, I'm going to repeat myself, so with great respect, is if people come call me on my phone and say, Joe, you need to do something about this gun violence, well, then I'm gonna. And I brought it to the table, and I got the conversation because I can't stand to see somebody else die, and I don't know what the answer is, but I can see this conversation will bring me something.
Right. So you said you had to go to the extreme to even get it to the table to be spoken about.
There is a study commission going on now in the State House and regarding some of the gun laws that's going on and
Right.
which guns to go about. But I don't feel as though it was strong enough. If you know my political background, everybody knows I come out real strong for the people. But how am I supposed to do this if I don't bring something like this to the table for all of us to discuss?
Right.
Okay.
And one more question I want to ask you is that bill to be voted on by the people, or is that voted by the politicians and in-house? Like, how's that work out? Are the people themselves going to be able to vote and say, well, we don't want that's too extreme, and like, how's that going to work out?
That's a good question. I'm glad you brought it up. Trust me, and it's about time, and especially music feed. I'm glad you're bringing this to the table.
Right.
And how politics works. I represent 14,000 people. So when this one particular politician, I got phone calls talking to me about gun violence from Southside Washington Park.
Right.
So at that time, I created this bill, which is, the gentleman is correct, over aggressive. The bill in itself, that's okay. The bill itself,
That's perfect.
the bill itself then goes to Judiciary Committee.
Right.
And there are several members of the Judiciary Committee. It's open to the public, for the public to come into Judiciary and to testify, yay or nay, for or against,
Right.
for or against the bill. And so far, there's been a lot of communication coming, pro and negative against this bill. At that time in Judiciary, when these committee members hear the testimony, they will make a decision in the committee whether or not it will go to the floor based on the amount of people that come into the State House into judiciary and say, yes, I want this, or no, I don't want this, for whatever the reason is. At that point, the Judiciary Committee takes all the witness statements and they decide to make a vote on whether or not it will go to the floor. It's still not a bill.
Got you.
When it gets to the House floor, because the whole thing is going to repeat itself, because it's going to go all the way back to the Senate. When it comes back to the House floor, the bill will need X amount of numbers of, I think it's a little over 38 votes for it to pass. And then the same would have to go over to the Senate.
Right.
But I personally don't see as this making it to judiciary, we're not making it to the House floor, because I'm already hearing from the other committee members who are basically afraid to talk about this issue. Not about getting it to the floor. Talk about it and have the guts to look at the witnesses that come to the Judiciary Committee.
Okay.
I got a comment on that. You said, I want to go back to where you said something about 10 round, about questioning on whether or not someone should have more than 10 rounds in their house, whether that be magazine or within their firearm.
Correct.
There's a story, I believe it was last year, what's the date here? March 7th, nope, sorry. January 4th of 2013.
Early last year.
Early last year, yep. Logan'sville, Georgia, there was a woman who actually protected herself with a .38, something that you've owned. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And it held 6 shots. It shot the intruder. There was an intruder that came in. But first of what happened is that her and her children held into a little cupboard space. And you can also, if anyone wants to see this article, WSBTV.com, you can find that.
So someone was trying to break into her apartment, or her home, a house rather, and her kids were hiding in the cupboard.
Right.
And while she gunned down the intruder.
Well, as she did this, she called her husband. Her husband called 911. The intruder came into where her and her children were.
Okay.
And she shot the intruder, I believe, about 5 times. The intruder went down, didn't kill him, but this leaves an option open that I'm not saying that the intruder should have died. That's what I'm saying here.
I agree.
However, had she missed 6 times, maybe she wasn't a good shot or whatever, the intruder still could have successfully probably have done harm to her, and not only her, but her children. Now, I don't understand the argument of whether or not a person who's law-abiding, who's legally owning a firearm, should not be able to have more than 10 rounds in his firearm.
And I totally don't understand what you're saying. If she took this man down with 5 rounds, which, by the way, you are correct. You can shoot somebody with numerous rounds, and that guy, man or woman, could still live, stand up. But I said 10 rounds. She shot him with 5, and he went down. You're mentioning one story, and
well, one of many.
One of many. But at the same time, I mean, all I know is what I've seen over the years on the streets of Southside and in Providence in general. And I've never seen anybody more than 10 rounds still stand up. But the thing is, and I understand your opinion, I truly do. And there isn't a disagreement with us, but to the extent of what these bills are overly aggressive. But how do I go about saving lives when radio stations such as this saying, well, you know what, Joe, we don't believe in the system, so I'll bring you to the table, and that's what I did.
So have you considered that banning any of these, and if these were to ever pass, that you could actually be putting lives in jeopardy rather than saving them?
When we talk about, in fact, criminals, like you just mentioned earlier, no problem with that conversation. But nobody on your side is talking about why is it that little kids, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, are bringing a gun to school. Or when one of these very interesting folks came to my house and questioned me about my bills, and the first thing he said to me, he says, well, Joe, and he looks at the Broad Street School and he says, well, the teachers need to carry guns. What? We're here to teach kids. We're here to make them to the next DJs or the people that have more music fiends. And we're not talking about teaching a kid with a bullet. So no, what I'm looking for, and I thank Music Fiend for this, is the ability of why don't you and I form a commission together to figure this out, because it's surely not going to be solved today in this review program.
Certainly on, hold on, I just want to
go ahead.
Certainly on the position of violence, absolutely there needs to be something done here. But we also need to look at everything in a 360-degree angle. We have a bad social system here. What I mean by that is that the state's heavily impoverished. There is a lack of education. I actually was just talking with my aunt earlier today, and she brought up some things that I didn't even realize, that these schools can't even afford to give these kids pencils, you know, and we have a more dropout rate. This causes a misdirected guided missile in these neighborhoods, or with these children rather, and you're banning these firearms aren't going to take them out of their hands if they happen to be amongst the wrong crowd. Because I mean, I have an article here too. It's just an example. If you heard of the Fast and Furious scandal, FBI, ATF, DEA, these are people that, you know, I'm sure you're probably familiar with, actually handed over AK-47s that are semi-automatic with 30-round magazines illegally, and actually allowed the purchases from FFL dealers, and about 2,000 of them landed into the Mexican cartels. I mean, our government is arming enemies. 2,000 grenades were also handed over to these. Are you aware of this article at all?
Not the article.
CBS News and CNN has also exposed it. I encourage that you read it. There were a couple of agents that died because of this. No, that's just one example of violence that comes out of Mexico. Mexico has is probably the highest country right now with the highest gun violence, because none of their citizens are armed. Their government completely bans it altogether. I don't know if you're aware of that either.
So you feel like if by banishing guns completely, that it will be the citizens kind of will have no control, or a way of fighting back.
We can't sit. I'm sorry. We can't sit and wait. And I'm not saying that. And also, there's a lack of police activity. And to be quite honest with you, my position on police entirely are very different probably from yours. I mean, I've seen a different perspective of our police force, just not in this state, but around the country, and how their abuses are. I mean, they've become radicalized in this, militarized within the past recent years, especially since 9/11, and since the Sandy Hook shooting. They're trained to treat citizens, even law-abiding citizens, as terrorists. I mean, there's guidelines for it. I don't have the article on me, but please, people out there, research this stuff. I encourage you. I have tons of articles here about all this stuff, and
Real quick interjection, and then I'm gonna actually turn over to Joe for a response. I want to get to as the screen goes out. There was a question in the chat that said so. One of Island Dreams, shout out to Island Dreams for the question. She said, so basically you had to be extreme in your bills in order to have people respond to it, but will you be revisiting the language of the bills once it does get to where, once the Senate takes it? Will you be revisiting it?
Well, I don't think it's going to make it to the Senate, but I'm willing to revisit the bill to make it.
So you're willing to compromise?
Oh yeah, I've never said that I would not, and that's the part that I don't understand. I mean, social media is great, but it's unfortunate it doesn't produce all the facts. But to get to Tru.
Yes.
First of all, police work in itself is semi-military. The second part is that as far as my career goes, I can't speak for other police officers, but a cop goes from call to call. A police officer answers the call, and that's what I did as a police officer. Anybody who knew me in Southside knew what I did, good, bad, or indifferent. I don't hang my head because I'm proud of what I've done. But I don't consider myself somebody that's against the folks, especially since I came from Southside, invested in Southside, and still represent Southside. What I'm concerned about is that I'm only concerned about Providence. I'm concerned about Rhode Island. Whatever happens in Mexico, and I have friends who serve on the border right now, they tell me some horror stories, all of which you are absolutely 100% correct. But in order for me to get a discussion on how to save lives. In order for me to be a state rep, to answer the question, when people are calling me and saying, Joe, and I'm paraphrasing, I apologize, man, what you gonna do about these guns? What you gonna do about so-and-so getting killed? And family members that I knew, or family members I grew up with. I got a responsibility. Listen, you mentioned some good issues, none of them which I'm gonna dispute, but the fact is the biggest weapon of all is the power of the vote and the power of the ability of getting people to come out. So I ask, my eyes to yours, I invite you, my brother, to come down to the Judiciary Committee and let the rest of them hear it. Because it's not just me you'll be talking to, it'll be the rest of that committee and what goes on that House floor. Come, testify.
Absolutely, and I'll be there.
Really quickly, just to update a viewer who asked, I just reviewed both of these documents are pretty much the same. And these are bills that were drafted by Joe Almeida, and they call for an aggressive approach to gun control here in Rhode Island. One bill calls for the ban of semi-automatic weapons altogether for everyone. And the other bill actually is specific to what he was saying about the 10 rounds. And like if you're found to have over 10 rounds, for that to be an illegal act, unless you are police or military.
Well, I just want to add one more piece, because back in the day when we had a 38, old-fashioned piece, a 38 and a ball round, eventually at some point, law enforcement wanted to go from a ball round to a hollow point. And the hollow point, well, it does damage, but it does its job. Because of that hollow point, and it gave us what we thought was more firepower. But again, I go back to the fact that hollow points is just a dime a dozen as far as I'm concerned for the average citizen to use it. And if that hollow point goes through a piece of metal, it's gonna bounce or go through the human flesh and come out the other end a much bigger hole. Look, I don't profess to know the answer.
Right.
And I'm gonna say it 100 times. But the fact is, I want to bring attention to guns and gun violence. And then sometimes the only way to do that is with bills of this nature.
I do want to ask, both of y'all discussing scenarios when there's an intruder breaking into the apartment or a house like that. But especially you, you can respond to this. I'm just playing devil advocate here. I'm not saying whose side I'm on, whatever. But what would y'all say to or especially you as a cop, about wouldn't it be more important to repair the relationship between the urban communities with the police? Because a lot of the kids feel like they can't trust the police. So the reason why they go get these guns is because they take the law into their own hands. So what about the flip side to that? By taking the guns away, it might lead to a revolt where people feel like, well, nah, they're trying to control us too much. How do you respond to that? The repairing the relationship between the police and especially the urban community. I want to say that because I'm from the urban community, obviously. So, how would y'all go about that, repairing that relationship?
Well, back in 1979, 1980, I came on in August of 1979. And by 1980, we formed the Rhode Island Minority Police Association.
Right.
At that point, from there, we joined the National Black Police Association. The National Black Police Association said back then that there was racial profiling being done not just by white officers, but by black officers, all officers. There is no color, it's the color blue.
Yeah.
Right.
All that being said and done, if you check way back in the day when the gangs are just starting to come about, and this...
The gangs as like the Cripple Blood.
No, that's what I'm going to talk about. The Providence Journal at that time,
right.
we were both the Rhode Island Minority Police Association and the National Black Police Association, and I've been to St. Louis, East St. Louis, almost been to every ghetto in this country, even as a Marine. I went there on purpose. And what we brought back to Rhode Island was try to reach out. Unfortunately, the officers today, young officers, I don't know, you look young for me, so you're young in your generation, have not done what the black and Latino and the Southeast Asian officers did back in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. And we had a lot of programs that reached out. For some reason, the younger officers, and it's their responsibility to go out and, as the old Isuzu commercial goes, go out and touch.
Right.
And they don't reach. And maybe what you need, use a subject matter. What you maybe need to answer a good point. I don't want to put words in your mouth, my brother, so I apologize. but I think you said a point, like the whole circle of it all, of reaching out, not just with guns. So if you're asking me to give you one answer, it's impossible.
Right.
It's a collaboration, a partnership with myself, in this case, between myself and Tru, as we sit here and debate, not each other, but how do we save lives?
Right.
And so, how do we do it? This radio station. How do we do it? Tell these young cops to get up off their butt and do what we did in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and speak out, even if you don't agree, but speak out and sit to a table instead of just getting a paycheck. That's what we did back in the day.
I'm going to also take a moment to present another kind of devil's advocate.
Right. Question. Go ahead.
And it just goes to speak to kind of, for me, this issue, I'm probably on both sides of the fence. I feel that as somebody who lives on the south side, lives in the inner city, I am frustrated, tired of the senseless killings and deaths, etc. At the same time, I personally believe in my ability to arm myself, not only against criminals, but also against a government that might be trying to make me a criminal. And I know that sounds weird, but that's how I really do believe. And one of the things that kind of came to mind to me when I was saying devil's advocate, and for someone like me, this is an important discussion to see because I am, kind of, vacillating. What I never have seen or haven't heard is in any of these murders in Providence and in general, I haven't heard that the gun was traced back to a legal gun owner. That's just something that I haven't heard, and maybe that's something that you can, anybody can kind of let me
Say
know.
that again?
I haven't heard any of these inner city youths being tied or connected to a legal registered gun. And part of me, from outside looking in, wonders, is it these law-abiding citizens that this bill would really come down on? Are they really the problem for the inner city violence? And if they are, why are we not going after these registered gun users if that happens? And I don't know if you can answer that because that might be a little bit about police work and what goes on. But that's just something that's missing that it's not adding up for me.
Well, from what I remember back in the day, we always tried to figure out who had the gun last. I don't know what they do today, but I do know that we did try to trace it. And if we did, that became part of the evidence discovered, as they call it. And then that was put into a bill, into a true bill, excuse me. And then eventually it brought to court to show where the chain of evidence came from. I'm assuming it's still done today. I hate to use that word assume, make an ass out of you and me.
No, I mean,
Right.
But it's still checked into.
I just wonder with that piece, like, if somebody, when somebody says that to you about your bill, like your bill is aggressive, but it doesn't address you say I need a solution for the streets. But if I don't know, and I could be wrong, I never hear about it being a registered gun from a law-abiding citizen that is used in one of these murders.
There have been murders with legitimate
and if so,
I
would like to see, I would think that
like
that should.
I was going to let him comment. Go ahead.
Well, going back to what you were saying, like being able to, pinpoint
the source
of where it goes, right?
These actual guns.
Well,
like where are the guns coming from? Point blank.
I thought I had the article on me, and I don't know if I do, but I did read somewhere, and I can't remember what the source was, but is that the majority of firearms that are used, actually are handguns that are used in violent crimes and usually ending up in death.
Correct.
But the majority of those firearms are usually with serial numbers scratched off, and they're bought off of the underground markets. Underground markets, which the example that I just made earlier, I know it's not our country, but our government was involved
With the cartel.
With the cartels. Our government alone has been caught countless times with weapons being issued out into the streets. I mean, they did it in L.A. Back in the 90s, and that's why they had, such a murder rate. I mean, L.A. was like one of the murder rate capitals.
Right.
Detroit is suffering right now. Chicago is ridiculous right now. I mean, they have the strictest gun laws right
New Jersey.
New Jersey, New York, Connecticut. Now, the reason why I'm pointing all that out, sir, is because the gun banning is not going to take away the gun violence. We need a stronger structure. We need a direct structure towards the violence. Our police need to stop brutalizing the communities. Our police need to stop profiling our communities, and our police need to stop shooting first and asking questions later on our communities. And those communities are primarily Black and Latino communities. That's if you ban weapons, because if you ban firearms, from these communities, not everyone in those communities are not law-abiding. A lot of those community members are law-abiding. If they cannot defend themselves, what do they have?
Tru, you brought up a good point, and he's correct. Tru is absolutely correct that they take the numbers and they grind them down. In fact, I got a question for you because I don't even know how to word this new device they got for guns. But I think Tru and I don't mean to speak for you, but I think Tru and I are true gun owners. The way I was taught, it's my gun. So I've been off the job many years. I'm not going to sell my gun. I'm not going to sell it to a pawn shop. It's my gun. And I don't know the life travel of that gun once it leaves my house. So that's it.
Right.
Some gun owners sell them. I understand that. That's fine, but I'm not. But let's talk about that. The handgun and the amount of murders, and I think this is where you and I will disagree. Because like I said, I started with 38, in which, by the way, cops used to carry 32 in New York. That's where they started. And then when later on, years later, because this one particular Black man who didn't die in New York from a bank robbery from a 32, might be back in the 20s, I forget, gave an order of a 38. That tells you the history of a gun. But all that being said and done, we went from, like I said, revolver to a 9mm. Cops reflect society, what they see or what they're confronted with.
Right.
Tru is absolutely correct, and I probably put it over the top, that these unfortunate deaths are done with handguns. But again, I'm going to repeat myself. I watched it go from a revolver to, in this case, I'm going to specifically say the 9mm. Right. Well, I'm supposed to be proactive. When is it going to be at some point that it's going to go to some sort of automatic weapon on the street? I don't know. And because of what I've seen on the street, when I saw it was no big deal for marijuana to go to jail for many years for marijuana. I ain't get bagged with a nickel bag. It's no big deal.
Right.
And then when I saw from crack versus cocaine, where the Black community suffered because of the crack epidemic and even suffered by going to jail. But all that coming from a foreign country, wherever it may be, by the way, Tru, but you're right, Mexico. Right. The fact is, so these folks on the street at some point are going to upgrade themselves from a 9mm to an automatic. Right. When do I make the move, or do I wait for a series of people to get killed? I don't know, and that's my question.
Well, that's the thing, and I completely agree with you with the violence and stuff like that. But I'm pointing out that our government is doing it. It's not, and this isn't conspiracy. You can research this stuff. By just that article alone, and again, I know Mexico isn't our country, but we have to use models of certain countries. Another example too would be Switzerland. They have the lowest gun restrictions and the lowest gun crimes. All of their, I think what I think is a bit of, if it was here, it would be unconstitutional that they're required to actually own a firearm. I think it's a free choice for someone to own a firearm, and whether they feel comfortable or not. But the fact of the matter is, going back to what you were saying, that these weapons are finding themselves onto the streets somehow. And it's not always because of someone who's law-abiding owning these firearms. And majority of firearm owners cannot own automatic weapons. I mean, you have to go through certain, you have to pay a tax. You have to go through certain regulations and register yourself. Even having the license to conceal, you have to go through a bunch of paperwork.
Correct.
Right now, in just this state alone. But and I've researched this stuff. I mean, it's ridiculous. But I mean, should someone own an automatic firearm? I mean, that's for everyone's opinion. The fact of the matter remains is that in the Second Amendment is that we are able to have a well-regulated militia, and a right to bear arms shall not be infringed.
I do want to ask a question to Mr. Tru here, like to go back to what he was speaking about, where the point where the teachers are saying, well, they so concerned with the shootings at the school that they want to carry a weapon. So what would you say to them? You know, if he passed the bill, wouldn't that kind of get rid of that fear? Because would it be a less of a fear now that there's no guns in the street, that they to worry about going to school and teach their students without worrying about it getting gunned down? Like, let's not act like it's not coming more common now, where people who are registered gun owners, if you read the stories, they're the ones where the kids got the guns from are shooting these schools up. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure the Sandy Hook, his mother was the owner. She was registered. The Columbine situation, they were registered owners. What would be your rebuttal to that? Because that's kind of pushing the bill more, people more favor towards him by saying no guns at all.
Right.
How would you balance that out now and say, you know,
with the Sandy Hook story is a bit. What's the best word? The information is very sketchy as it is. If you look into the story, I mean, you can. I have an article here, but I mean, there's deep stories, deep information about it. And first of all, they bulldozed the school. Did you know that?
Like tore the school down.
They tore the school down.
Yes,
they did.
So my question for this is that there's a lot of information that's very, there's like a big smoke screen in front of it, and you can only see bits and parts of what they want you to see. So you have to actually look for it. I mean, this child, they put his death certificate a day before he was actually killed, supposedly, allegedly killed.
So you feel it's a conspiracy?
Adam Lanza. I believe there's a conspiracy on, there's an agenda going against gun ownership and the Second Amendment. I believe there's an agenda going on nationwide and on a worldly scale, but I want to be focused on our nation just alone.
Right.
But going to your question about should teachers, were you asking me if should teachers be armed or not?
Right. Yeah. But I'm saying, how do you be fair about that? What teachers? How do we come to the point where teachers are saying, well, damn, I want to be armed to go teach my kids because I have a fear that some students or somebody may come and shoot up the school and hurt innocent kids. And these were, according to the story, I only can go by what the article says, you know what I'm saying? They were registered gun owners. So you know what I mean? So how do we, lack of a word, police that? How are you going to police?
All right, if the story, as it was said in black and white right on live TV, if it said that this Adam Lanza took his mother's firearms.
That's the Sandy Hook, the guy who shot him. I'm letting the viewers to know who we're
Sandy
talking
Hook,
about.
talking about the Sandy Hook.
Right.
If this Adam Lanza shooter went into this school and he took his mother's firearms from her gun locker, or whatever it was, then she's the irresponsible gun owner. And these are isolated situations. But people, look up that story because it has information that doesn't line up. And I want to address if whether or not teachers should be armed. In my opinion, in this day and age, because our the violence within our world just today, I think anyone who is capable, who's comfortable, who's law-abiding should be armed. We all should be armed.
So you do feel teachers should be armed?
I feel that, yeah, I do. I mean, and the reason why I say this is because any place that is a gun-free zone, this right here is a gun-free zone. Anyone can walk up in here and shoot us all to hell.
Right.
None of us can do anything about it. They can hold us at gunpoint, make us strip naked. We can't do anything about it. I mean,
right.
That is what it is. And I don't feel comfortable about that. I don't feel comfortable that people have to be in potential dangerous situations. I'm not saying that everybody is a terrorist out there that's coming to hurt you. I mean, the likelihood of you getting shot is, I mean, it depends on what situation you're in and where you are at the time. But it exists, and that's the whole point of being able to defend yourself properly.
Right. I'm going to let him rebuttal, but I do want to ask you before he rebuttals.
Right.
But wouldn't that say I'm playing devil advocate here. I'm not attacking you. I don't want to feel like that. Yeah. I'm just letting the viewers know I got to play both sides of the fence. That's why I'm here.
I did one and you do one.
Right. No. Yeah. Exactly. But I gotta get the questions and the information to the viewers.
That's what we do. That's what we're
because I'm not on either side. I'm just listening, taking all the information, and then I make my decision from there. Right. But I gotta ask you because as a father, you know, my kids might be scared to go to school now that Mrs. Such and Such is walking around with a gun on her hip. You know what I mean? That might make them fear to go to class. You know, no, I'm serious.
I'm sorry.
Or
this is the only time I'm gonna laugh right now, but I really did have a vision of like one of my old school teachers with like a holster walking through the
that
hall.
you don't
I'm sorry.
you don't fear that, like, especially younger kindergarten kids might be scared to go to school if their teacher had a gun on the hip, or if one of the students happened to get mad at the teacher and get an upper hand and snatch her gun or something, like the story might go on. Like, let's not act like these things can't happen. Like, you know what I mean? So, like, I mean, how would you respond to that?
Right, and I understand the taboo of that altogether. I mean, it is a little awkward to think, well, hey, my science teacher is holding a...
Yeah, she got a 9mm that she's serving lunch, and you know what I'm saying?
I do understand the awkwardness of that, but that's the thing. We cannot fear these... we cannot fear the ability to be able to protect ourselves and arm ourselves. It's I would say it's the lack of education on that part altogether. I don't like Mr. Almeida. I don't have all the answers, and I don't want to express just all of my opinion on it. I want to keep.
No, I don't expect y'all both to have all the answers. That's impossible.
You know,
but I'm just saying that these are questions I'm pretty sure the parents at home and the viewers are asking in the back of their mind.
Well,
you know,
tell me something. You said you're a father, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So you want your child to feel protected. You want your child to be protected, rather.
Absolutely.
You don't want ever, God forbid, you want ever anything like that to ever happen. So, you know, what is the proper solution? Should we wait for 911 to show up when everyone's, you know, all on the ground and ambulances are around? I mean, I mean, I'm not trying to get personal here, but that's what it is. I mean,
I understand where you're coming from.
It could absolutely become personal.
Right.
And I don't know if teachers should have to carry a firearm, but I do know that if it's a gun-free zone, they are left vulnerable. So is that the solution? I don't know if that's the solution, but in my opinion, and just from what the Second Amendment says, we are able to, we have a right to bear arms.
Got you. You want to rebuttal that?
Yeah, I want to have Joe rebuttal just, you know, teachers and arms and that. But I do want to read a comment.
But don't read your dreams yet. Let him rebuttal first. Please. Like, how do you respond to that? How do you respond to his argument about saying, yeah, the teachers should have guns on their hips to protect themselves because sadly these situation goes on where kids are coming to school and shooting other students. They're not shooting other students. There's students or past students coming to the school and shooting up the school. Oh, we keep forgetting about the incident in Virginia Tech. You know what I mean? Like stories like that. Like I'm tired of seeing them. I know everybody else is tired of seeing them. Like, I mean, well, how do you respond to that? Because he's saying the teachers have the right to bear arms and protect themselves.
People have a right to bear arms.
Right. Teachers and people.
No. I mean, true no, I'm going to say no.
Right.
But the fact is that I taught DARE at Rogers Middle School.
Right.
In the mid-'80s, I got into a terrible accident, so it put me off the street for a while. So they asked me to teach the DARE program. I said, oh, man, I'm a street cop. What am I doing teaching these kids?
Right.
But I went. And
I think I might have been there, too.
Oh, gee. And so I walked in the classroom. They showed us how to teach the DARE program, which I thought was, I think Tru would agree with me on this part, but how they were teaching it, but that's a subject for another day.
Right.
So when I walked into the classroom, the first thing the kids did was like this. They were looking at my gun. No matter what I said, no one's going to pay me no mind. So eventually what I did is every time I went in that classroom, be it Roger Williams or Essex Middle School, or I was all over the place.
Right.
They would see me take the gun off, put it in a special spot that they couldn't get at, and then that's when the conversation would change. And then we had a box, and in that box,
they would pay attention more when you put it away.
Yes, right.
Okay.
And then once I put this box up, and in this box you would write down questions that you didn't want nobody else to know. You didn't have to sign it, and you'd stick
suggestion
box.
Stick
in the box.
Yeah.
Nah.
Oh.
You'd be surprised what was in that box.
Oh, okay.
Some of the terrible things that's happened to these kids that I know, and I don't mean to speak for you, Tru, and I know Tru would probably be by my side if we had to take care of business. But the fact is that the kids paid attention to me, but did not pay attention to me when I had that 9mm swinging on my hip.
Okay. You You want to read that comment?
Oh, yeah. So Island Dreams.
Both of them made some valid points, by the way.
I know.
I
And
want
it's
to
so
say
funny. Shout out to the chat. The conversation is going crazy in the chat to the point that Rudy had to write down your comment so we didn't miss it. But she said she kind of feels that there needs
This
to
is
be
Island Dreams.
Island Dreams, who views every week. Shout out to Island Dreams. I kind of feel like there needs to be some kind of gun control on gun distribution. If you get down to it, manufacturers need more restriction, not the people who purchase it. To handle something, always go to the source. And I thought that was a very interesting comment myself.
Somebody's been watching Sons of Anarchy.
because the reality of it is, people, you shouldn't be punishing people when it could be something that you could be looking even further. You could be looking at the source.
Right.
Maybe there are other things that we can do to keep people safe at the manufacturer level. And that could just be, safety things, different things. Do we have fingerprints to open doors? You could put a fingerprint on a gun or something.
Yeah. Well, how do you respond to that then?
That's a great suggestion. I think that from your viewers, given both myself and Tru, some ideas and some conversation to think about. You mentioned the fingerprint. I forgot the name of there's a tool where if you buy a gun.
Trigger lock.
Oh, it's like a scanner?
It's like a scanner, but as for your eye, it would be for your fingerprint to that trigger.
Oh, you're talking about the new smart weapons that they want to get out. Is that what you're talking about?
I stand corrected. In other words, if it's my gun,
okay,
it will shoot. If you grab my gun for whatever reason, it won't. It will never work. I mean, I don't know. These are some of the things that's been coming back to me.
Right.
I've been off the job for a while, so I hear all these different. I'm open with it either way. You know what I mean? I don't know anything about it, but the fact is, like this written idea, Music Fiend has gotten the viewers to take a look at what we're both talking about.
Right.
And now I'm getting my table of discussion and maybe some of my comments.
So your hope is just to get people talking about it. You just want people talking about it.
The other thing too, I just like to hit all three of y'all.
Should I get a gun now before this bill is passed? That's what I want to know.
The other thing I like, and I noticed the three of y'all mentioned the government.
Right.
Well, no disrespect, dear lady, but you wearing a government hat.
Of course, my father was in the army. I'm repping my daddy right now, not the government though.
But if you start talking about the government,
and I didn't say no about the government. Today.
But if you talk about the government and you look at, and Tru, I asked you to look at some of my records that I brought in. One was the right to vote for ex-felons. As a guy who locked up a lot of people who became felons, well, why would a felon have to be punished the rest of his or her life by not being able to vote? The expungement bill, we bring it up year after year after year. There's some things that just needs to be wiped away to give a man or woman a fair shot in life.
Right. I agree with that.
There are issues, in regarding the whole judicial system. Like, you're going to think it's silly, but I brought up a bill to get rid of disorderly conduct. So me and LadyRuck are in the backyard just having a good time, just having a few laughs, and we get loud, and you don't like the way we're loud in the backyard, and the police officer shows up, and we're still loud. We can get locked up for disorderly conduct.
Oh man, I would vote for that bill 10 times. So disorderly conduct is the worst law ever.
So I'm asking Music Fiend to look at the Rhode Island face.
Shit, you got my vote on that one.
To look at all the bills, because this gun bill, is just one of many that, quote unquote, stands up to the government for what they be, from a guy who's done government twice, 3 times in his life.
Right.
And each time I'm still fighting, so I need soldiers too. You expect me to do it by myself?
Absolutely
so
not.
We all need you to come up. So this is one of many of what I call the human rights part of it all.
True, you had said before he went into his statement. What was your issue with the guns having a fingerprint? You said you had a issue with that, or
certain things can go wrong with that. Batteries run out.
Also, it's battery operated.
I believe so. I read a small article about it. I think it's just something that they're, forgive me, but the anti-gun, lobbyists, whatever you want to call them, they're trying to find solutions of how do we limit the firearms out of the hands of criminals, and that that was one way. I think the article had something to do with. I think it said something like smart guns or something like that, where like you said, if it could read your fingerprint or your heat signature or something like that, or your eye, your retina, or whatever. And I just don't. I don't think that's gonna be. I don't think that's gonna do much for those who are going to use it to defend themselves with, because I mean. You know, you get nervous when I'm sure people get nervous in that type of situation if you're ready to distribute it and brandish it towards someone who's about to, you know, probably cause harm against you.
Right.
So I don't know. I think that would be a big fail, in my opinion.
I just want to take the conversation a little away from criminals, as I just told you about the right to vote for felons.
Right.
And as many people I've locked up, I still believe I had a lot of good men, in my case, good men that did the wrong thing, that went to jail. But I bring this back up, that my pro-gun folks are still not talking about children who find a way to bring a gun into the school. The kid is not a criminal. No.
Right.
What the kid may have done is criminal. But in fact, it's the parent or parents leaving that gun unprotected. So do I go after the parents to say, hey, wait a minute, this kid would not have done what he or she did if you didn't have the responsibility of a true gun owner to, well, lock and safe up, you know, put that gun in a safe environment. And so that's another question I'm going to have to look at some point down the road. And I will, because now what am I doing?
I think that the first thing should be, I think this legislation, and here's where I give my opinion, unfortunately, but I think, like, for me, the legislation would make sense if it went after people who are found to be a party to a murder via their weapon being used, because obviously they're not being responsible with their guns. You know? I think I would be a little bit more okay, because you're going after the people who are wrong. But I can see both sides. I think that this can affect everybody, though, even people who have not done anything wrong and who have been practicing safety gun stuff.
Yeah, I mean the if the bills were to go through, and I'd have to agree, I'm not very I'm confident that they won't go through, and I do hope that they don't. But however, if the agenda that is, you know, being brought forth, that these bills do happen to go through, it's going to leave quite a lot of people just in the state of Rhode Island alone as being felons. Correct me if I'm wrong, if that were to pass through January 1st of 2015, anyone who owns any of these types of firearms are considered felons immediately.
Yeah, correct.
Well, you're looking at someone who could be a potential felon who.
Then I suggest that you come to judiciary, you bring as many people as you can, and you confront this issue head up and tell them why.
No doubt.
And so stop, if you feel that powerful, that strong, with your age group and the age group I see in this room, I challenge you to come on it at a different way with a civil rights agenda and say, wait a minute, I do have the right to carry a gun.
Right.
But as well as the Constitution also said, we have the right to vote. As black folks weren't given the right to vote, and it took many years. And as you know, there's a lot of amendments to the Constitution to make things change. For our forefathers said this, but times change. Definitions come with different meanings. Case in point, when I brought up the point about Providence plantations. Well, that's the name of the state. I don't like the word plantation. I don't feel I'm on it. And that word has changed, has a different meaning. So all that being said to you, my friend, and I have nothing against you, my brother, but I'm challenging you. Come up, confront me in judiciary, bring your people, and stop this bill.
Absolutely.
But again, I got what I wanted. It was conversation here at Music Fiend.
Well, I mean, before I'm gonna give each of you a closing statement, you know. But before I do want to ask you, like I hear this a lot when people talk about gun control. I'm just talking about amongst peers and friends. Like, what the hell is the need to have an AK and all these big machine guns in the first place? You know what I'm saying? Like, what would you? I understand you have the right to buy whatever the hell you want. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like, what do you need an AK or automatic machine gun in your house? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what?
Well, all right. The need for it to have an AK-47 or AR-15, M4, M16. Well, not M16. Sorry, that's military. But the need for these and the need for them to have a certain capacity of 30 rounds is to defend yourself against government. In the Second Amendment, where it says to have a well-regulated militia. Paraphrasing right now, I don't think I'm reading it all the way correctly. But it's, and everyone that's out there, please research that. Research the Constitution and the Rhode Island Constitution, because it also states to have a well-regulated militia in the Second Amendment, and also to have the right to bear arms. The need for it is to have equal light arms power against, in defense rather, not offense, but in defense towards agencies that may be able to cause violence against you.
Right. So it's basically to have the same weapon that the government got to make the balance even, like say to make the fight fair, so to say.
Light arms. Yeah. That's I mean, that's basically you want to be able to defend yourself again. I mean, I'll give you a little bit of history lesson real quick. Hitler is a prime example. Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, they're prime examples of when, before World War II started, Hitler had, I believe it was Austria, researched this, folks. They had an embassy taken down, burnt it up, blew it up, and they blamed it on, I believe it was Austria. Forgive me if I'm wrong on that, but the fact of the matter is they blamed it on another country so that they can invade. They had an agenda to invade. And while this process was happening, when Hitler came to power, he started putting out these laws and these bills, just like America does, and it started getting rid of the firearms out of people who were Jewish. That's how it started. And those who opposed government, their firearms were taken. And sooner or later, 11 million people were slaughtered in these encampments. So that's the reason why that the importance of these bills that are going through. That's why they're very dangerous. Not only do we have gun violence just on the street level, but we also have to worry about these agencies that can bring violence to us.
Well, take advantage of the fact that there's no guns and people's not armed anymore.
Absolutely.
I got it. So I don't know who wants. You want to rebuttal that, or do you want to just closing statements?
You can go first, because I already made the first
Well, it's on you. Give your closing statement, your argument on why we should not pass this bill, and why you believe they should be have the right to buy any gun that you please.
I mean, basically, just as it states, I mean, you can go into history, and I encourage everyone to look in recent histories. I mean, even right now, the Ukraine is a perfect example right now. There were police sniping out their own citizens. Police. Granted, this is a different country. They don't operate under our own laws and under our amendments and all that stuff. But these are free people. I mean, these are people that are being oppressed, and we're slowly seeing a very harsh change in America just alone. This is a conspiracy. I know people out there, they realize these things are happening. I mean, it's right in your face on the TV. I'm not a fan of CNN. I'm not a fan of any mainstream news media, but I pay attention, and then I use other outlets to, to relate to. So the importance of these bills, and this is just on a state level, but nationally, again, just a year, for these past couple of years now, they've been trying to pass federal legislation to get rid of firearms and put a ban on firearms, 30-round magazines. Everything that's listed in these bills are very similar to what the federal government was doing, and it's very similar to what happened in Connecticut.
Right.
There's only about 50,000 people were only able to have turned their firearms in that have been banned. There's still 1 million plus that aren't, or suspected to be 1 million plus that are still considered felons.
Right.
With that haven't turned their firearms in because they're being civilly disobedient
Right.
now. They have a right to. They have a right to their Second Amendment. And
Got you.
That goes with everybody on every spectrum, every neighborhood, every culture, every race. You have a right to bear arms, and it's in danger right now, and that's my closing statement. Research everything, Second Amendment, all that stuff.
It's on you now. You want to do your closing statement? Yes.
Well, it's interesting that Tru talks about research everything when everything's still based on the government that he's researching from those facts that I believe that he's getting it from. But I do believe that there has to be a way to find a medium in regarding the amount of people that are getting killed. not just done by criminals,
Right.
but by the fact that these guns are accessible to our youth, and that we need to find a way. Thank you. We need to find a way to stop the amount of type of weapons that go out there. Serious automatic weapons, serious banana clips of all kinds that can go out and just not just destroy lives, but destroy lives that we don't even know about yet.
Absolutely.
So I ask that that both the pro and the anti-gun folks sit at the table, make a decision, come to
Talk
a
like some grown
compromise,
folks.
and let it come at that. And also, while I'm here and I got this radio, I'm at Music Fiend. I challenge Music Fiend to start looking at some of the government bills that both myself, the Black and Latino Caucus, has been doing for years. And you all need to come down, which, by the way, we got a bill coming out about the studying, put the historical study of black history in the Rhode school system.
Oh, I heard about that.
So
actually.
that's my bill.
I
So
don't know if I want them to be in charge of that, though.
the government's not in charge of that.
I'm just saying.
That's a different discussion.
I'm
But
just kidding.
all I'm simply saying is that
I'll be there. Let me know.
okay, that Music Fiend needs to come out front, because what you did with both myself and Tru, you brought us to the table. Nobody else did.
Right.
We're still going to disagree, but I think because of Music Fiend, we'll come with a compromise. But I got to stick with my bill until I see your people come to Judiciary Committee and make your point.
Nice.
Sounds good.
Great discussion.
I know. Yeah.
It's very. I appreciate both of the guests coming through. They both made some very valid points. But we expect for y'all to do your research, like they said, and draw your conclusion on what side you feel like to be on. This conversation could be 4 or 5 hours,
I know.
and we can keep going. I want to say thank y'all for coming through. I mean, this is very, very enlightening on everything that we learned today. I learned some stuff, you know what I mean? And it's a great conversation. Appreciate it. Third Society Radio, musicfiend.com. Are you going to wrap it up, or are we running out of time?
No time.
Yeah, we should end on a high note. Right. LadyRuck, you want to throw something off the
Do you
mixtape
have it
for
on
me?
the flash drive?
Yeah, it's on the flash drive.
Alright,
But I do want to say thank you to our viewers for viewing. Thank you to our guests again. Please come through again. If the bill get passed, I definitely want to see this shaking, man. It's grown man business. Give it up for him. Third Society Radio, man. We got to get up out of here. We appreciate y'all and every viewer. We'll see y'all next week, Monday. Peace. My mic is still on. LadyRuck is having issues with the DJ. You are having issues. There we go. Third Society Radio.
Looking forward to illing, looking forward to killing, looking forward to sinning, just hoping the Lord's forgiving. Painting pictures with scriptures for competition, I'm fearless. No biting tongues over here. I say it just how I feel it, cause they ain't on my level. I'm way above, I'm the devil.